back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that St. Simon's down in Boulders. Folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa. Hello, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is Chris live in central Pennsylvania. Monday, March 18th, 2024, with news and events from around the world, cogent, insightful, thoughtful analysis of those events, calling out the fake stream legacy media and the liars and reprobates in politics around the world. Welcome once again for your daily dose, your injection, your jab, dare I say your vax against. You know where that comes from, right? From Latin for cow, because they're dealing with the pox. Yeah, from the cowl. Anyway, so vaccination. Am I mistaken? Somebody check on my Latin recall, see if I'm correct. Anyway, welcome back to the program, folks. It is Monday. Ooh, just another manic Monday. Didn't the Bangles once sing that? Just another manic Monday. Let me say hello to everybody and greet folks in the audience before we get started here. So, Pip Jacobs is here, Gavin Comer, and once again, my timestamps are not there. There they are. Very frustrating software. Vilma Erasmus, welcome to you. Mark Sayers, hey Mark. Allison Johnson, Rod Lofeld in from Nelsprut. And then we've got Paulie's in, the brains behind the Operation Laudine Monday, Carlos Mango, Al My Five Pence, and Alan Kotza. There's Mike. Hey, Mike. How's it going? And Menage Qua saying good morning. Good morning to you all. Actually, good noon. Good afternoon. It's now past noon here. And now my clock is once again still a full minute behind. I guess I'll get around to that eventually, changing that. But just very busy with lots of things going on. So listening this morning to the Supreme Court initial arguments from the government and from Louisiana and their friends who are trying to get, get the Supreme Court to weigh in on this case of the federal government overreaching, overstepping its bounds, and violating the First Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees freedom of speech and freedom of the press. It didn't sound very good. Now, I'm not a learned attorney, a constitutional attorney, although I do understand the Constitution, and I can't necessarily read the tea leaves, but I will say this. It seemed to me that Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Elena Kagan, Justice Sotomayor, Chief Justice John Roberts, and Justice Amy Coney Barrett all seem to be opposed to freedom of speech and are guaranteed First Amendment rights based on the questions that they posed to the plaintiffs in this case. I was shocked to hear some of the things that were said, and I don't know what direction this is going to go, and I'm not reading the tea leaves, but I suspect that the government censorship of citizens in violation of the First Amendment will be confirmed by this court based on the initial comments. I hope I'm wrong, and I would very much be happy to be proven wrong in this. But Ketanji Brown Jackson said, my worry is that your view, that's the plaintiff's attorney, my worry is that your view has the government hamstrung in the most important times. Well, of course it hamstrings the government. There's no equivocation here. The government has no right to interfere in free speech. What's at debate here is how competent the government is. And based on the events of the past 4 years, our federal government has proven to be wholly incompetent, dishonest, and factually wrong on so many things. And we're supposed to trust these clowns? All right, so the First Amendment, once again, very clear. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, so no state religion like the Church of England, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, so freedom of worship for Christians, Muslims, Jews, Wiccans, Buddhists, and whoever, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, abridging the freedom of speech. What the government clearly did here and continues to do here is abridge the freedom of speech by using a third-party actor to achieve its desires and censoring speech that it does not like. The government did not prove that the speech they didn't like was harmful. The government did not make a case that the speech they disliked was harmful. They simply censored speech by cajoling, coercing, or colluding with tech companies to silence American speech. They cannot do that. They can silence foreign national speech in America. The companies can silence private speech, but the government cannot on its own or use a third-party actor or agent on behalf of the federal government and its bureaucracy to censor our speech. Wow. Now, Ketanji Brown Jackson said that government acting in a threatening environment from the government's perspective. And that's the key point of that sentence, that subordinate clause, from the government's perspective. Who made the government experts? Did they prevent COVID from happening? Did they provide adequate defenses? Did they even have a clue what they were doing? Lay people like myself knew more about this disease than the government did. Yeah. And got censored for telling the truth. You see, some of us don't live from today to tomorrow to tomorrow. Some of us make plans and adjust plans based on outcome of circumstances and changing facts to achieve a goal 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. In 1984, I made a plan to become a foreign area officer in the Army. I was a private first class in Germany. Didn't have a college education. You need a college degree. Didn't have the money for college. Needed to save that money and earn it, and did. And I made a plan to become a foreign area officer in the U.S. Army for sub-Saharan Africa and to serve in Africa, making a difference in changing history, and to reach the rank of colonel. That's a pretty bold plan for a PFC. That involved finishing my service successfully in the Army, going back to university, managing to pay for my university, successfully getting good grades, raising my grade point average, competing for the career branch that I wanted. Military intelligence was highly competitive and very difficult for males to get because women could not go into field artillery, aviation, combat aviation, armor, or infantry. They could only go in non-combat roles. And so they put a lot of women in the Signal Corps and into the intelligence branch, which made it very difficult for men to get in there regardless of qualifications. Had to do that, graduate, get commission, survive the Gulf War, survive other campaigns and wars, and go on to eventually get promoted to field grade ranks to become a field grade officer and then do the work in Africa. Also learn languages. All of that was on a plan based in 1984, which came to fruition with my first assignment in Africa around the turn of the century. 15 years later. That's a plan. That's forethought. That takes vision. And I do that in everything I do. Including my current run for political office. Yeah. So the government lacks that forethought. They claim they have it, but they constantly respond and react to things in front of them. And that's what they did during the Rona phase. So we are supposed to trust a government who censors those who ask legitimate questions of its behavior? I hope that my inferences from what these justices and the Chief Justice had to say are wrong, because if they're not, then the Constitution will be dead. The government cannot censor speech. The government can censor harmful speech, which is open to debate. None of us will debate that yelling fire in a crowd when there's no fire, which can lead to the death of people who panic or injury, is a criminal act. None of us can argue legitimately that defaming someone in print, libel, or saying something to harm someone that damages them is slander. Slander and libel, we can't argue against that. Those things exist and they are prosecutable. But a person going on Twitter and saying that they don't believe the government's position on the efficacy of something that they're pushing is not misinformation. It's not disinformation. It's an opinion. And people are entitled to their opinions as long as their opinions are not directed at harming other people or defrauding other people. It's as simple as that. These are God-given rights. These are natural rights, not something given by government. And if this court errs on the side of censoring speech, saying it's okay for the government to coerce, collude, cajole third-party actors to silence speech they dislike, we're in Nazi Germany. That's where we're at. We're in the Soviet Union. We're in communist China, North Korea. Nothing better than that. Nothing better than that. I will watch this case every time they talk about it, when there's going to be any more discussion about it. My goodness. Well, Mike, I work for my success over time. Don't you think that no matter how hard one works in today's world, DEI could have interfered with your hard work? Well, yes, DEI did interfere with my hard work. I was prevented from becoming captain for 7 months unnecessarily because of what wasn't called DEI, but early Clinton administration interference in the promotions of the United States Army officers. That's one example, and it happened several times. Before I became a field grade officer, thousands of U.S. Army officers who were white were denied promotion, even though they're better qualified, over their ethnic minority peers because the Army had unstated racial quotas. There was a class action lawsuit by those former Army officers when they found out about it because someone let the cat out of the bag after a few years of this garbage happening. people started noticing, how is it that 6% of the Army's officers are black, but 18% of their generals are black? That's pretty impressive. Well, yeah, it is impressive, particularly when you tilt the scales one way or the other. Now, that lawsuit was settled before I became a field grade officer, so that didn't affect me. But there are other times that I had to overcome this nonsense. It's simply wrong. So, yeah, some of us have already been dealing with this for years. It just wasn't called DEI, but today it definitely is something that will prevent people from getting anywhere. Yep. What am I saying here? So, sorry. Keith Alderson's here. Hey, Keith, I haven't seen you in a while, or I've missed you in the chat. Welcome. Olaf is here. Sue Walsh, Laudine Monday, George, Hakan Engman in from the Netherlands. And who else we got there? Gavin Comer, Emil Therrick, Charles Van Onslen, the voice of reason. And who else we got? Elmy 5 Pence is back. Hey, Elmy 5 Pence, one of the first people I met on my South Africa trip. And then we've got Ken Aaronson's here, the first person I met. Well, not first person I met, technically second, because it was the Pet Zoo film crew. Where's the Pet Zoo film crew gone? I haven't heard anything from them lately. Manashkwa says, on the subject of DEI, are you aware that white women have benefited? Now, I'm aware that people make that claim without any substantiating data to support it, Manashkwa. I've heard that repeatedly. I have not seen any data to prove that. And what does it matter? So Manashkwa, what does it matter? What does it matter whether the white women or white men or black women, somebody is unfairly benefiting from bigoted, racist policies that discriminate against another group of people? If the best person to be the chief executive officer of Hewlett Packard is a Navajo, then it should be a Navajo. If the best person to be the CEO of Minnesota Mining Manufacturing is a Somali immigrant and a naturalized citizen, then it should be a Somali immigrant naturalized citizen. If the best person to be the CEO of Ford Motor Company is a member of the Ford family, then it should be a member of the Ford family. Now, these are subjective determinations, but results matter. What does not float is turning on my television, watching streaming, and having commercials interrupted on Roku TV or watching broadcast TV, and 90% of the people in the commercial are people who represent just 12% of the population. The racial disparity in Madison Avenue's commercials is far more egregious than the National Basketball Association, where only 78% of the players are black, not 85 to 90%. But we shouldn't see color. Agreed. But for years, we've been told that some groups are being discriminated against and marginalized. If anything, the people who appear the least in art, in television, in sitcoms, in dramas were Native Americans. Plenty of Hispanics represented over and over again. Plenty of black folks represented over and again, despite the lies. But the people now being excluded are Native Americans, although there's been a surge in Native American coverage with a number of shows out there, but still it doesn't represent their impact on America. But the people being excluded are white males, almost non-existent or only in the periphery of commercials and of programs. I just saw something advertised last night for some fantasy adventure and not one white actor except for the lead actor, who's a well-known actor who's been around for decades. Everyone else, the kids are all mixed race. All the other actors are Asian in an environment that's clearly a Black Forest scenario of medieval Europe, and there's no white folks. But Lord forbid that I'm selected to play Malcolm X or Dr. Martin Luther King in a biography. People would lose their frickin' minds. So Menage is saying McKinsey has a study from 2022. I'm a consultant with McKinsey, and I was unaware of that study. So if you happen to know where it's at, please let me know, but I'll have to make a note to research that. You'd like to see a Boseman in a Marvel movie. Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Petition to deport Cape Independence, very close, maybe backfire. I don't even know what that is. Petition to deport. What is it? Something from the EFF trying to get rid of people? Or is that for targeting Phil Craig? If Phil Craig's a nationalized citizen, that's not going to work very well. Oh man, the internet is driving me nuts here in South Africa. What's driving me nuts? Is it the poor connection, Emil? If the best person to run MSNBC is a gay man, awesome, as long as they're conservative. Yeah. If the best person to run Bud Light is a transgender actor, then so be it. Then so be it. It's about merit. It's about success and achievement. And people are cowards. People in leadership positions in this country and around the world are cowards. They're afraid to stand up and say what's right. You know, instead of equivocating on Israel, people should make it very clear. There would be no devastation in Gaza. There would be no deaths of civilians. There would be no utter destruction of residential areas were it not for the cowardly, dastardly, vile, inhumane, barbaric terrorist attack on October 7th of 2023 by Hamas. Israel wasn't in Hamas. It wasn't in Gaza. They abandoned it in 2005. They left it to the Palestinians. And they graciously allowed Palestinians to come across the border into Israel and work there and earn a living, making exponentially larger amounts of money in Israel than they could in Gaza because there's nothing there. It's sand and a beach. They supplied the electricity to Gaza. But that's all forgotten about by anti-Semites, bigots, and Jew haters, and America haters. Now, we can once again have a conversation after several months of this campaign against Hamas about Israel's military approach and whether it's warranted or just. It's just, but is it warranted this level? That's a fair conversation. At what point should this have been done by special ops and drones and not a constant pummeling? These are fair questions, but that's not the question being asked. The question being asked is by the likes of the African National Congress, how can Israel commit genocide? Which this doesn't meet the definition of genocide in the international environment. It is a smoke and mirrors. Meanwhile, genuine genocide is taking place in China to the Uyghurs, in Myanmar to the Rohingya. Both groups are Muslim, by the way. And where are the Muslims up in arms about that? Where is the Arab League up in arms about that? Almost all Arabs are these days in the Middle East are Muslims. Not many Christians left, but and not many Jewish Arabs. But where are they up in arms about this? Where's the United Nations up in arms about the oppression and the genocidal acts against Muslims in Myanmar and in China? Silent. But my goodness, somebody say a derisive comment about a Muslim in the Western world, and it's Islamophobia. It's utter nonsense. Not that there isn't that sort of thing. People afraid of Islam. There's reason to be afraid of Islam. There are radical elements in Islam, are there not? Just as there are radical elements in most faiths around the world. How has Hamas able to smuggle so many weapons in Israel-controlled imports and Benjamin's whole stance is based? Israel did not control the imports. Where do you get that Israel controlled the imports? They didn't control the imports. And if you think the Egyptian border was as firm as it is now, you're mistaken. How? Very easily. Humanitarian flights. People bringing supplies in. The Iranians, that's how they did it. It's very easy, menage a trois. Very easy. Embargoes are the only way to stop this. Gaza was not embargoed. Weapons were freely shipped in. What's the next question you had there? Netanyahu's whole stance is based on tough security. I don't know what you mean by tough security. What do you mean by tough security? Are we talking about before October 7th, or are we talking about since October 7th? Ivan Brink, welcome to you. What did Emil Thaird say? Was there a question here? 300C cables along West African case damage expect to take weeks. Yeah, no, I'm aware of that, Emil. I just know it was still affecting you. No, I reported on that when it went down. Yep. And there's also the damage to the cables in the Red Sea, which hampers data going the other direction. That was from one of the ships that sunk, I believe, as a consequence of the Houthi attacking. It landed on a cable and crushed it. The West African cables, we've heard no plausible reason for why the West African cables have been affected. Farm murder, hate tax on whites daily, borophobia. Yeah, borophobia. That's a good term there. You're right. There is a borophobia. We should coin that phrase, borophobia. Carlos said it here first. Gaza border, Egypt, Israel does not control Gaza borders. Correct. That's what I said, Charles. Yep. Dan Hook is here. Welcome to you. I'm clear to land, says Garrett. All right. All right. So, Stellenbosch Tower. This is Delta 357. Stellenbosch Tower on approach, 6,000 feet. Oh, shoot. What's that? That's a mountain. Hang on. We got to turn. Ooh. Delta 357 on approach. Flaps. Extend landing gear. Oh, screw this. We're not landing Stellenbosch. Let's divert. Eiserfontein. Wait, there's no airfield there. We'll just land on the beach. Well, the beach is rocky. Before 10/7, I thought Bibi's campaign was based on security. This is just so happened before as he was facing his own charges. Oh, you mean his election campaign was focused on national security for Israel, and he was facing allegations by opponents. Yeah, but that's really not germane unless you're making the claim that Bibi Netanyahu encouraged Hamas to attack Israel as a diversionary campaign. Is that the argument you're making? I don't think you are, but that's the only thing that makes sense there. At least one break in the undersea cables, apparently at 3 miles down, so the cable couldn't bleed due to seismic volcanic activity. Yeah, that could be. But imagine fixing a cable 3 miles down. That ain't going to happen. You're going to have to lay another cable, man. That's crazy. Wow. Yeah, the dodgy Stellenbosch Mafia. It's the murder capital. I'll skip that. Yeah, anyway, back to the news, folks. We're now 24 minutes into this broadcast. Time to get to the news, which is what people tuned in for. The elections 2024, the Independent Electoral Commission, I will give them credit for looking ahead, but I will also at the same time take some of the credit back because looking ahead should have been done 6 months ago. But now, just 2 months before South Africa's elections, the Independent Electoral Commission is concerned about electricity for the elections. Thank goodness they don't use Dominion machines like we use. They just have paper ballots, or they'd have a real problem in South Africa with the elections. We got a super chat coming in, 10 pounds. My goodness, Cena. Been a while, man. I haven't seen any pounds in a while. So thank you so much for that. Where is my bell for ringing? You can ring my bell, ring my bell, ring my bell. I can't sing. Gavin loves the hoodie. It's a Stormers hoodie. I've worn it before. There you go. Good stuff. And I really like this because it's got this down at the bottom here. Check that out. Yeah, right there. Stormers right there in the pocket. Nice stitched thing. All right, so Helderberg, but Colonel, the second lieutenant, got you covered. Cool beans. Thank you for that. Western nations need to grow the balls and act decisively. This woke cock. Agreed, Kurtz. 100% agreed. Woke is not healthy. I'm not saying diversion, but if I base my career on security and this happens on my watch, then what does this say? Oh, well, you ask a very good question. And I asked that question in the early stages of conflict. And I said that heads must roll in the intelligence security and the intelligence apparatus as well as the political apparatus. Now, we did hear that there were a few analysts in Israel that said that this is a threat. But the part that I've made here from the very beginning was the foolhardy decision. Why is Usina's chat not showing up? That super chat should be showing. Come on, YouTube. Why are you not showing that super chat? Let's see if that's still marked on or somehow I mistakenly turned it off. Okay. Alert box is on. Okay. YouTube is being very difficult. So let me ring it, and if it comes up again, I'll ring it again. Super sticker from... Oh, there it is. Finally. Super sticker from Messina for 10 pounds, man. That's awesome. That's like more than $10. I love that. Yeah, so Menage a Trois, you're correct. And my argument that I made very early on with this was that what moron bases their early warning alert system on a cell tower system? In South Africa, we know that people steal batteries, knocking out cell towers. And in West Africa, we know that there's no power. So when the batteries die, they don't work. We know that in America, storms and lightning and around the world take out towers. They get saturated with communications. Who in the world would actually put their alert system there as a primary means? That should have been landline, hardwired, cable underground for that early warning system, followed up by high-frequency radio communication as a backup and an alternate, redundant system communication, followed by satellite-based. And then finally, the last thing they should have relied on was a mobile network. People should be sacked for that. People are dead and died horrific, horrible, painful, disgusting, vile, sick deaths, twisted deaths because of the failures. Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu will not survive this war. If he does, it'll be a surprise. You probably won't change him. It'll be like Churchill. The war's over, hit the road, Jack. You know, the major failures in the Israeli security and intelligence establishment and amongst their politicians. They grew complacent. And also amongst the developed world. The West sat by while Hamas built these tunnels with money meant to feed, house, and clothe Palestinians. They stole billions of dollars to build their terror network. Where's the oversight, USAID? Where's the oversight, DFID? Where's the oversight from the Germans? Utterly ridiculous. Oh, there's another super chat coming in pounds. I haven't seen that one come up yet. My wife used to sing the same song to me. Yeah, you can ring my bell. Ha ha, Charles, that's funny. Monray says, good afternoon from Cape Town. And Hendo gave a £5 super chat. Wow, 15 pounds, man. That's like $1,000. Not really, but maybe New Zealand, but not U.S. But wow, £5 from Hendo. Wait for that to come up there. And there it is. Boy, my tummy. There it is. 5 pounds, 15 pounds. Thanks, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Both of you guys. With no hardwire backup, Colonel, you expect that kind of moronic action from the SANDF. Agreed, Charles. Agreed. Well, the hardwire should have been the primary means, not the backup. Look, the POTS, the plain old telephone system, POTS, which we've had for over a century, is highly reliable. That's why GE had the concept of Six Sigma. 999999999. That is the standard. 99.9999% of the time operational. General Electric and their Six Sigma. And that's what AT&T had. They strove for. And all the landline networks. You use hardwired landline first. Idiots. Total idiots. Voter confirmation was going to be digitally certified, so electricity might be required. Well, that's a problem then, isn't it? More like 1,000 rands. What is UN doing as they were supporting peacekeepers in Gaza? I'm not aware of peacekeepers in Gaza. I'm aware of peacekeepers in Judea and in Jerusalem, and I've seen them. The United Nations has a mission of observers that's been there since time immemorial. I think since 67 or thereabouts. Certainly since 73. But I've run into UN peacekeepers, or observers, not peacekeepers, but observers. There's a difference. There's no peacekeepers. There are peacekeepers in the Sinai. They're Americans. The multinational force, it's there. That's been there. The MFO has been there since the Camp David Accords in the Sinai Peninsula. But I'm not aware of any peacekeepers in Gaza. It's 87, 88 when the SADF actually went into Mozambique to help set up the radio network because it was so poor we couldn't hear them properly. Yep, could be. Right, 67 likes. We haven't even done the mail. Anyway, so the IEC is looking at what's going to happen if the lights go out. What happens if EFCOM, Election Day, May 29th, ladies and gentlemen, here's a breaking news story from South Africa. ESCOM has pulled an ESCOM. No electricity at the polling stations. ESCOM has pulled an ESCOM. That's right, folks, an ESCOM. So there's the super chat from CB for 35 Rand. Oh, thank you so much for that, CB. My favorite number, 5. $5 billion. Thank you so much for that. Right, so back to the elections here, and the IEC says they're looking at the electricity problem. To ensure that load shedding doesn't affect voting, the IEC has procured torches and temporary lighting. Should they always have those anyway? I mean, if you didn't live in South Africa, wouldn't you want to have flashlights? I mean, I, as a judge of elections, keep a torch and a lantern in my car in case the power goes out, even though it's not dark when we're doing the voting, but when I wrap up, it's dark. Interesting that they finally think about that. FNB has closed the account of one Jacob Zuma. What's going on here, ladies and gentlemen? Jay-Z's bank account was closed. FNB said that it was complying with a specific order by the High Court in KZN by closing former President Jacob Zuma's bank account, and that it could not comment any further on the client's specific bank accounts. The bank said in response to business report questions that it treats all customers objectively and consistently. According to Sunday World, Jacob Zuma's bank account at FNB was allegedly the account in which 7.8 million Rand from VBS was deposited. According to media reports last week, Zuma was ordered by the lawyers of VBS curator Anush Ruplal to pay at least $250,000 relating to repayments of his loan if he does not want his compound attached. Ooh, now they're going to confiscate Nkonla. Well, I think they should give Nkonla to the taxpayers and turn it into a theme park and resort, not to the bank. I mean, he stole from citizens first, not from the bank. ANC heavyweights tell Cape Town voters, just give us a chance, man. Just give us a chance. ANC Deputy Secretary General Nomvula Moyonkanye, Deputy Police Minister Kaso Matlala, and National Executive Committee members were embarking on a door-to-door campaign in Guguletu and surrounding areas to drum up support for the ruling party. We want you to give us, what's that? Oh, Erica gave us super chat. Thank you for that, Erica. 70 Rand. Thank you so much. Very kind. Look at this. We started an avalanche of super chats. What's going on here today? Is it payday? Thank you so much. We want you to give us a chance. All we are saying is give the creeps a chance. All we are saying is give the creeps a chance. No. Give us a chance. The ANC in the region, the ANC in the province, the ANC in South Africa, chance to belong here so that in your difficult times, in your happiness, we'll continue to rob you blind. No. We are able to look at you and say tomorrow, we will be better than yesterday. Let me ask you this, folks. Let me ask you this. Other than Christo Visa and the Oppenheimers, Nicky Oppenheimer, and a few other folks in South Africa, like, 500,000 cadres or cadres, are you better off today than you were in 1994? But let's make it even clearer. Are you better off today than you were in 2005? How many South Africans can say that? In fact, there's a lot more South Africans today than there were in 2005. So a lot more people living in misery in 2024. All we are saying is give the ANC creeps a chance. Yeah, no thank you. No thank you. Kleptocrats. Listen, folks, after the election, the ANC will be governing. So says Fikile Mabalula. That's right. The ANC will be governing. Well, there's a bold prediction. Yes. A supporter of former President Jacob Zuma stormed on the stage in an attempt to annoy his foes. Zuma supporters sang a different tune on stage after the ruling party secretary general made an underhanded comment about the country's former leader. And there he is, trying to sing Wenzeni Uzuma. Yep. The ANC will remain in government after the elections, said the party's secretary general, Fikile Mabalula, just before a mic-snatching incident transpired. The ANC governs, and I can tell you, when we wake up on May 30th, the ANC will still be the government. Well, yeah, because the transition doesn't take place on the 30th. It takes place after that. Wow, he made an underhanded comment saying that certain people were promised things they could not do in 9 years. Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'll just take the ANC for things it has accomplished in 30 years. Record unemployment. Record HIV infections, record tuberculosis infections, record poverty, tens of millions of South Africans who didn't even live in 1994 living in abject poverty, corruption, the quintupling of murders per day in South Africa, massive infrastructure collapse and failure. These are the accomplishments of the African National Congress. They don't get credit for building 1 million homes in 5 years because they failed. They built 1 million homes more like in 12 years. They don't even get credit for that because those homes were built to buy votes, not to alleviate the suffering of black and poor South Africans, but to buy votes. And I tell you this very specifically because if they weren't meant to buy votes, then land tenure would have been transferred. Hello, sir. Welcome to your new RDP house, Reconstruction Development Program. Your new RDP house built for you by the taxpayers of South Africa. On behalf of a government, here is your title deed to your home and to the plot of land you're on. Best of luck. But no. We, the ANC, have built a home for you. We, the ANC, will give you this home, but it's not already yours. It still belongs to us. We can take it away from you if you don't vote for us. We see you're not voting for us. We take it away. Yes, that's correct. No land tenure. No title deed. No. Not for you. No soup for you. No soup for you. ANC. Well, News 24 takes a moment to tell us about the rise of the Mkhonto weSizwe Party. Interesting introspective here by Kanana Hunter and Soyizo Mati. When MK was registered in September 2023, it listed a residential address in Eshway as its headquarters, and it's still the case. It doesn't have a headquarters. The house in northern KZN was listed before the registration of the MK party as a residential address of Jabulani Kumalo. The 55-year-old Kumalo identifies himself as the interim chairperson and a member of MK, which describes itself as a true liberation movement dedicated to bringing positive change to society. Now, Mr. Kumalo, who hails from Durban, first attempted to register the MK party in June 2023, but ran into administrative trouble and then later registered the party. It is based in a residential address, not an office building like Lutuli House, but a residential address. The National Prosecuting Authority mourns the assassination of one of its prosecutors. Eastern Cape prosecutor gunned down by balaclava-wearing suspects. National Prosecuting Authority is calling for justice after one of its own was killed in an apparent hit in Butterworth in the Eastern Cape. Ntsikelelo McAllister Ntelekenyu has been acting at the regional court at the time of his murder. According to preliminary investigations, the deceased was with other people at the new rest location near Butterworth. When he went out of the house, when he was returning, he was followed by two balaclava-clad unknown males and shot in his upper body. He'd been with the National Prosecuting Authority as an intern since 2001 and now a prosecutor. The political assassination of opponents or prosecutors or witnesses in South Africa is vile and repulsive and must be stopped. We need a government in South Africa, in Pennsylvania, in America, in Germany, and France that will stand up to criminality. Conca Queers, interesting. Also be reminded that without a transfer of the title deed, these people pay a flat rate of 35 for rates and tax instead of the 50 times rates enforced on homeowners. Correct. 100%. That's a good point that I don't think any analyst ever notes, including me. I've never noted that. Thank you for sharing that. Did Stalin have a son? He had a daughter. Well, ladies and gentlemen, remember when I did an analysis of the African National Congress and how there's no whitey on their list? Well, there are. There are 4 white ANC members amongst the 200. That equates to 2% of their nominees to go to Parliament. 200 on list, 4 whiteys. That's 2%. Yet whites make up about 8% of the population. Where's that diversity, equity, inclusion? How's that working for you? How's that hope and change working for you, South Africa? By the way, so the African National Congress is putting out a name for their candidate for Premier of the Western Cape. Now, if we go through the ANC's list of their candidates, and we start at number 1 with Mynheer Palapala, Cyril Ramaphosa. And of course, number 5 is the Minister of Injustice, Ronnie Lamola, about the dimmest bulb in the box, aside from Ibrahim Patel. Yes, and Naledi Pandor. Well, there's also Angie Cheka, too. Anyway, but number 86 on the ANC's top candidates to serve most talented people is, of course, none other than the Minister for the Directorate of International Relations and Cooperation. That would be Durko, or Jabba the Hutt herself, Naledi Pandor, ranking 86th. So this shows you how much respect the ANC has for the Western Cape, which is populated overwhelmingly by coloreds, whites, and Xhosa, and then the Khoisan, not by traditional ANC. Well, the Xhosa kind of a traditional ANC stalwart, but not these Xhosa. Those are East Cape Xhosa. Anyway, Jabba the Hutt is the ANC's candidate for the Western Cape. Wow. The ANC wants International Relations and Cooperation Minister Naledi Pandor to be its candidate for the Western Cape. She's one of 3 names submitted for their consideration. She's 86th. The second most valuable province in all of South Africa, they're going to trust to someone who comes in number 86 on their list. Boy, I'd love the 86 on somebody's list. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Well, the Democratic Alliance is calling for a law, more regulation, governing coalitions. I have a better solution. How about you change your corrupt voting system that's rigged for political parties and change it to one in which people can vote for candidates, not for a party list? That'll change things. And how about you end your parliamentary system at municipal level? Because it does not work. You cannot have a parliamentary government at a city. You must have elected councillors and elected mayor and let them serve their terms. Not government falls apart, reorganize, government falls apart, reorganize. That is the solution, not new laws that the DA wants to bring in here. So the DA says it wants to change things. Call for a legislative framework to secure the stability of coalitions, saying the lack thereof has contributed to metro governance and service delivery failures. True, but the answer isn't the DA's answer. Party believes that a solution to the governance crisis with the introduction of 2 bills to regulate coalitions and local governance. The first step is to extend the Electoral Commission of South Africa deadline to form a coalition. Yeah, you get 14 days. Now, that's ludicrous. 14 days, it should be at least 30 days. I agree with the DA on that. Hey, Bradley Peterson's back. What's going on there, man? Gus is here. Well, police have arrested another suspect in the disappearance of beautiful Jocelyn Smith, who apparently, according to police reports, may have been sold for muti. Sick and twisted behavior in South Africa. Cops arrest another woman in connection with Jocelyn Smith's disappearance. Western Cape police arrest a 32-year-old woman in connection with the disappearance of 6-year-old Jocelyn. Despite an intensive daily search, there's no sign of the young girl. This woman faces charges related to human trafficking and kidnapping. But of course, the ANC is really concerned about human trafficking and kidnapping of children by requiring people from around the world to carry the original birth certificate for their child. Not a passport, but the original birth certificate for their child to visit South Africa. Yet, children are abducted, chopped up for muti, sold as sex slaves every single day in South Africa. And what does that birth certificate requirement accomplish? Nothing. Well, Times Live has done a poll about whether people are concerned about violence in KZN because of MK. And the poll was very poorly worded, but this is what people chose. Are you concerned violence could flare up in KZN due to IFP and ANC political squabbles? Why are you including the IFP in this? That's nonsense. So, violent clash between the ANC and IFP members are said to have ensued at the weekend, at the 110th celebration of King Zulu, Dino Zulu, Kakecheweo after Sibonyosi Doma. Yeah. So this is the question, and these are the answers. Are you concerned about violence flaring up? With KZN, everything should be worried about. And yes, they're putting people at risk at 22%, and only 6% said it's political banter. So 71% of respondents said, hey, when people start talking stuff in KZN, you need to pay attention. In neighboring Namibia, another major oil discovery, this time by a Portuguese oil and gas company, Gulp, made another oil discovery in license PEL 83 off the coast of Namibia, located close to recent discoveries made by Shell and Total. This campaign on blocks 2813 Alpha and 2814 Bravo, located in the heart of Namibia's Orange Basin, which is emerging as one of the world's most prospective oil and gas regions, being carried out with an Odfell drilling managed semi-submersible rig. Well, more good news. Namibia will be awash in cash, which SWAPO will steal and misuse, and people will continue to live in poverty. Namibia has begun a campaign to vaccinate people against human papillomavirus, HPV vaccine rollout. Top Namibian official tells The Voice of America the southern African country is set to begin distribution of the HPV vaccine to adolescent girls in April as a preventative measure in the fight against cervical cancer. Namibia has a population of about 1 million women ages 15 and older who are at risk of developing cervical cancer. Each year, 375 women in Namibia are diagnosed with the disease, and the fatality rate is over 50%. So a little under 200 women in Namibia, in a country of 2.6 million people, die from HPV each year. One death is too many, but they are starting a jab program to prevent that from happening. Well, this is an interesting story, and I don't really know whether to believe it because they get the facts wrong, but apparently Botswana is ready to export its first citrus crop. Wow. Citrus entry into the international markets. This comes from a Chinese website. That's the Minister of Agriculture, Fidelis Molao. Botswana is preparing its first citrus harvest from the Silibi Pikwe Citrus Project, located 402 kilometers east of Gaborone. Ladies and gentlemen, 402 kilometers east of Gaborone puts you somewhere in Mpumalanga, not in Silibi Pikwe. You could order northeast of Gaborone, but not, say, east. East of Gaborone puts you in South Africa, not in Botswana. Nonetheless, I'm sure it's just a typo. They plan to export 70% of the produce. During a press conference in Gaborone, the Minister of Agriculture emphasized that it takes a lot of effort to comply with procedures, regulations, and guidelines for farm produce to enter the global market. The Salibe Peakway citrus farm covers more than 1,500 hectares. In March, 2,400 kilograms of fresh lemons will be exported weekly to the Middle East, with 3,600 sold domestically. In April, 9,000 will be gathered and sold for export in domestic markets. China, the United States, Canada, Britain, the Middle East, and Japan are among the international markets that have been targeted. This is something that Ian Khama was arguing and encouraging for years when he was the president for agriculture in the eastern and northeastern corridors of Botswana in a desert environment, semi-desert. Well, Zimbabwe is going hungry, courtesy of El Nino. Residents of the Zimbabwean village of Buhera stood in groups at a primary school waiting to be called by name to receive life-saving handouts of grain, peas, and cooking oil. We're grateful, but the food will only be enough for 1 month, said Mushawaka, 71, who lives with her elderly husband as she's trudged away with her bag of grain. My crops are wilted. Zimbabwe has failed to feed itself since 2000 when former President Robert Mugabe seized farms owned primarily by white farmers, disrupting production and leading to sharp falls in output, leaving many Zimbabweans reliant on food aid for survival. However, let me clarify that statement by the Times Live. Zimbabwe has not been food dependent on support and aid the entire period. Many of those years, yes, but not every year. That's factually incorrect. There have been years of significant maize harvest in which Zimbabwe has been able to feed itself. However, the preponderance of time since the theft and the abrogation of the rule of law in Zimbabwe by the thugocracy of Robert Gabriel Mugabe and ZANU-PF beginning in 2000, Zimbabweans have been fed primarily by Americans. Those suffering hunger have been fed and kept alive by America's generosity for the past 2.5 decades. United Nations troops wounded as fighting flares up in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Clashes have broken out between government forces and the M23 rebels, leaving 8 UN peacekeepers injured after a brief lull in fighting in the eastern DRC. That is never going to end that conflict. Well, Kenya's opposition leader is being pushed to take up the AU Commission job next year. This would follow on the ungentlemanly-like behavior of South Africa in pushing its candidate, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, to be the African Union Commission chairperson in violation of the unwritten norm and rule that regional hegemons would not serve in that role for the Organization of African Unity or for the African Union. Unfortunately, South Africa broke that ceiling and changed the norm. And now regional hegemons are competing for that seat every time, to the exclusion of small countries like the Gambia, Gabon, Botswana, Malawi, Burundi, places like that. If so, the emphasis of the African Union will continue to be on the interest of the big actors like Algeria, Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya, not the other 49 African states. Well, they're pushing hard for him to be the guy. Kenya's chosen opposition leader Raila Odinga to challenge for the AU Commission chairperson's job in February of next year. The current chair and former Prime Minister of Chad, Musa Faki Mahamat, his deputy Monique Nsinwaza-Wabangwa, a former deputy governor of the National Bank of Rwanda, and the 6 AU commissioners are each in the last year of their terms. There you go. This time, the chairperson will come from the East African community, and therefore Kenya wants it. Well, U.S. military operations in the Sahel are going to suffer a major blow because of Joe Biden's ineptitude and his foreign policy failures, which have led to encouraging unrest, military coups d'etats across the Sahel, including Niger, where the United States Air Force built a $115 million base to operate drones out of in support of the FAN, the Force Armée Nigérienne, the Niger military. And now, because of a dust-up, we are going to lose access to that base, and it will likely fall into a bad state of disrepair as Niger does not have the funds to secure it and operate it. More money poorly spent by Barack Hussein Obama. U.S. is scrambling to assess the future of its counterterrorism operations after the ruling junta announced it was ending military cooperation. U.S. military has hundreds of troops stationed at the major air base in northern Niger that deploys flights over the vast Sahel region south of the Sahara Desert. Top U.S. envoy Molly Fee returned to the capital in Niamey this week to meet with senior government officials accompanied by Marine General Michael Langley, the head of Africa Command. She had previously visited in December while acting Deputy Secretary of State Victoria Nuland traveled there in August. So, there you go. The U.S. kicked out of Niger. Well done, Joe Biden. We don't know where the money is, say Zimbabweans who are supposed to be the beneficiaries of one of these many carbon credit trading scams taking place around the world. Carbon credit trading scams. That's what it's all about, folks. The green economy is not the green economy. It's only green from the standpoint of the grifters and their friends in power putting money in their pockets for solar photovoltaic, for demonizing coal, for demonizing petroleum, for pushing people into freezing apartments without heat and access, for destroying our entire planet with their rapacious appetite for lithium and rare earth elements. Yes, that's right, folks. That's right. Carbon schemes. I saw this in Liberia when I was there 15 years ago. A Canadian company being paid by European power companies like RWE in Germany money because the Canadian company would cut down no longer sap producing rubber trees, chop them up and burn them, producing carbon and releasing into the environment. But somehow they got credit because they planted new trees. So the initial impact was releasing tons of carbon to generate electricity for Liberians by burning wood. And the trees that they planted to replace the trees that they cut down, they got money from RWE in Germany. What a scam. What a ripoff. And that's what's happening around the world with this bogus carbon trading schemes. Carbon schemes are touted as a way to transfer billions in climate finance to the developing world, but it's a lie. People at the Kariba project in Zimbabwe say most of the profits never arrive. In the district surrounding Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe, most people have little idea their villages were at the center of a multi-million-dollar carbon boom, punctuated by straw-thatched mud houses like Miombo woodlands on the edge of the enormous artificial lake are mostly home to smallholder farmers. The gravel roads are full of potholes, cars are infrequent, as are medical facilities and internet connections. Data on the region is patchy, but Harungwe district, which covers a number of the villages, has an average poverty rate of 88%. Yet these communities were supposed to benefit from carbon trading schemes. Scams is more like it. They received virtually no funding after a decade of promises. Yeah, there you go. China's economy's in trouble, folks. The jobs market unemployment rate hit 5.3%, reversing half a year's gains. I'm sorry, according to the fake U.S. government statistics, our unemployment rate is less than 4%. But the Chi-Coms have a 5.3% unemployment rate? Let's see, an economy of 1.5 billion people, 800 billion people in the workforce, that would mean, wow, there's over 40, 50 million people unemployed. That's not so good. That's not so good. Vladimir Putin has won a new 6-year term as the president of Russia. Congratulations to the totalitarian chief, Vlad Putin, the friend of the African National Congress. They're kissing cousins. Putin claims a 6-year term in a vote condemned is not free or fair. Well, it sounds a lot like, 87.29%, 76 million people voted for Vlad. That's impressive, man. Wow. The Kremlin brushed aside condemnation of the Russian presidential election as neither free nor fair and rejected allegations of pervasive electoral fraud as the country's Central Election Commission claimed record high turnout and said Putin easily secured a new 6-year term. With genuine opposition candidates barred from running and the Kremlin exerting tight control over the news media to Putin, Western nations, including the U.S., denounced the vote as failing to meet basic democratic standards. Many Russians protested by forming long lines at polling stations on Sunday to no avail. Sorry about that, folks. Didn't work out for you there, those long lines. Germans protesting against the Alternative für Deutschland, mischaracterizing this movement as extreme far right-wing by making allegations that are unfounded about deporting millions of criminal alien invaders. But sympathetic leftist Germans think it's okay for their daughters to be sexually assaulted and raped at Hallenbad's, at Schwimmbad's, and then be blamed for dressing provocatively in one-piece bathing suits. Yeah, Germans thought they were immune to nationalism after confronting their Nazi past. They were wrong. Ooh, this is not news. That's op-ed, Associated Press. Kirsten Griesheimer, when Sabine Thonke, what kind of German name is Thonke, joined a recent demonstration in Berlin against Germany's far-right party. It was the first time in years she felt hopeful that the growing power of the extremists in her country could be stopped. Thonke, 59, had been following the rise of the Alternative für Deutschland with unease, but when she heard about a plan to deport millions of people, she felt called to action. I never thought such inhumane ideas would be gaining popularity in Germany again. I thought we'd learn the lessons from our past. The lessons from your past? To be doormats for criminals? For people taking advantage of your social good? For taking money out of the pockets of hardworking Germans? For driving your business abroad because of excessive cost? By paying for a social welfare state for people who aren't even German? That's the lessons of the past? Sabine Thonka. Well, ladies and gentlemen, groundbreaking development in Wales, where the first person of color will be in charge. That's right, a Welshman of color. That's right, daddy's Welsh, mommy's Zambian. That's right. Vaughan Gething to become the first black leader of a European nation. Why isn't he white? Daddy's white. Wales is set to appoint its first black leader after Vaughan Gething is announced as a winner of Welsh Labour leadership election on Saturday. Gething will succeed Mark Drakeford, 69, who announced in December that he was stepping down. The 50-year-old said he would have the honor of becoming the first black leader in any European country when he becomes Welsh first minister next week. Yeah, okay. He was born in Zambia to a white father from Wales and a black Zambian mother. So we have England, the United Kingdom, being taken over by South Asians, and South Asian newspapers proclaiming how India has conquered England. We have a mixed race man who identifies as black, not as Welsh, leading Wales. Aren't you Welsh? Isn't that what matters? You're Welsh, not black. Well, the White House efforts to combat misinformation. Of course, the White House is the leading purveyor of misinformation and disinformation. Go to the Supreme Court. And I talked about that earlier. Justices must distinguish between persuading social media to take down sites, which is permitted, and coercing them, which violates the First Amendment. No. There is no persuading. That is coercion. That's a lie by the New York Slimes. Well, Joe Biden blames Donald Trump for the border crisis. Seriously. Yeah, even some Democrats say the president has waited far too long to visit the border and recognize the problem. How can he fix it? He can't, because he doesn't want to fix it. He wants America destroyed. Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends. Really? I'm sorry. Who's the president, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? The border was largely under control when Trump was president. And then within days of you becoming president, we've been inundated with 10 to 20 million criminal alien invaders. More criminals have come into the country in 2023 alone than the population of 34 of our 50 states. And it's Donald Trump's fault? Give me a break. You can blame Donald Trump for a lot of stuff. Trump reveals a plan to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese-made cars manufactured in Mexico. What will this do to the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal, I wonder? When former President Donald Trump threatened to impose a 100% tariff on Chinese cars made in Mexico once reelected, that's double what he previously said. Mexico has taken over a period of 30 years, 34% of our automobile manufacturing business, Trump said during a rally in Ohio. China is building massive plants in Mexico where they plan on building cars and selling in the United States, paying no tax at the border, adding that the plan will not work under his presidency. Let me tell you something, China. If you're listening, Mr. Xi, those big monster car manufacturing plants you're building in Mexico right now, and you think they're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans. You're going to sell us cars to us. No, we're going to put 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line. Now, that's problematic with U.S.-Canada-Mexico agreement. I'm not sure how that works. And never mind the fact that 40% of our car manufacturing is actually in Ontario. So I'm really not sure what Trump's getting at here. Smugglers are selling access to Mayorkas parole program for $5,000. Stop that. Unauthorized migrants, criminal innovators are being sold access to Biden regime's parole program for as little as $5,000 in Nicaragua. Scammers charge would-be migrants $1,000 up front, and that buys them contact with an American who is willing to fill out the forms promising financial support. Once the Department of Homeland Security approves the sponsor, the migrants pay the other $4,000 to the scammers and head to the U.S. Parole is being sold on the open market. Nicaragua is one of 4 countries covered by what has come to be known as the CHNV program. Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas' special treatment for migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. So there you go. Selling access to America to criminal aliens invading. Well, Donald Trump is about to make an announcement on a national abortion ban. And before I go any further, how? He has no authority to impose an abortion ban on America. He can state a position on it, and he can ask Congress to give him a bill to sign into law, but he has no authority. Executive authority does not apply. National security does not apply. Donald Trump has no authority whatsoever to ban abortion, nor does Joe Biden. He's looking to craft an abortion policy to make both sides of the debate happy. Well, that's not going to happen. Best thing is just ignore it. Last month, the New York Times article suggests that Trump would support a 16-week national ban on abortion. Asked about the rumor in a Fox interview, he said, "We're going to find out, and pretty soon I'm going to be making a decision. And I would like to see that if we could do that at all, I would like to see if it would make both sides happy." Unfortunately, you have no authority in this field. You can appoint justices to the court. You can overturn unconstitutional decisions like the Roe versus Wade decision. You can ask Congress for a bill that bans abortion, but you can't do anything. Illegal immigrant from Lebanon is caught at the border and says he's a Hezbollah terrorist, hoping to make a bomb and headed to New York City. Lebanese migrant, criminal alien invader, was caught sneaking over the border, admitted he's a member of Hezbollah, a terrorist group. He hoped to make a bomb, and his destination was New York City. Basil Abdadi, 22, was caught at U.S. Border Patrol March 9th near El Paso. While in custody and when asked what he's doing in the U.S., to which he replied, "I'm going to make a bomb." But El Badi later claimed in an interview that he had been trying to flee Lebanon and Hamas because he didn't want to kill people. And he said, "Once you're in, you can never get out," according to internal U.S. immigration documents. He said in a sworn statement after his arrest that he had trained with Hezbollah for 7 years and served as an active member guarding weapons locations for 4 years. His training focused on jihad and killing people that were not Muslim. There you go. Another criminal alien invader terrorist gets across our border. This one, fortunately, got caught. FedEx and Amazon trying to work together to deal with returns of goods. Talks didn't result in a deal, but illustrate the shifts in the growing business of handling parcels that customers return. Two companies last year discussed FedEx accepting returns of Amazon packages as retail locations, bringing the delivery giant a share of the business. They didn't reach a deal, but the development continues. Wow, a lot of people returning stuff that they're not happy with. Donald Trump is unable to find an insurance company to issue a policy so he can pay the bond on that outrageous, ridiculous, illegal $464 million civil fraud case. Former President Trump can't find an insurance company to underwrite his bond to cover the massive judgment against him, his lawyers told a New York appeals court. Trump's attorney said he's approached 30 underwriters to back the bond, which is due at the end of this month. The amount of the judgment, which interest exceeds $464 million, and very few bonding companies will consider a bond of anything approaching that magnitude. An insurance broker, Gary Guglielmi, testified for Trump during the civil fraud trial, signed an affidavit saying that securing a bond in the full amount is practical impossibility. In other words, nobody does a bond for that amount. Crazy stuff. Menage a Trois says that Dems are claiming they were pushing a bill to secure the border, but Trump had our Republicans block it so that he can use it as a campaign point. Well, first off, let's be very clear about that whole situation. There is no need for a bill in Congress. This is a lie. It's an amnesty bill to grant right to remain in our country to people who violate our sovereignty and broke the law. We have existing laws. The criminals in Washington, in the Department of Homeland Security, and in the White House simply need to enforce existing law. A very generous law, nonetheless. There's no need for a bill in Congress. This is bogus. So the Democrats can say whatever they want about Republicans blocking the bill. Republicans are blocking the bill because it's superfluous legislation that grants amnesty to criminals. But the media don't tell the truth. Look at the legislation, menage a trois. This is a red herring. Donald Trump managed to secure the border with his existing authorities under executive authority and his control of executive branches of the government and existing federal law. Why can't Joe Biden? Why does he need new laws when he has the same authority and same powers that Donald Trump had all along? This is a lie. Don't fall for the lies of the media and the left. The law exists. It's very clear. Put them back. Send them back. Simple. Simple. Well, according to the Washington Times, it's luck of the Irish as the cherry blossoms, a gift of the Japanese over a century ago, adorn the mall in Washington, D.C. But they're hitting early. Must be climate change. The District of Columbia's iconic cherry blossoms along the tidal basin unexpectedly hit peak bloom on St. Patty's Day, 6 days earlier than were predicted and before the start of this year's National Festival. National Park Service announced Sunday that recent warm weather swings enticed the cherry trees in their second earliest bloom after March 15th of 1990. Of course, they don't bother to tell you that there were plenty of early blooms in the 1950s, the 1940s, the 1930s, only after 1990. Peak bloom, peak bloom, peak bloom. Do we say peak bloom? The blossoms are opening and putting on a splendid spring spectacular. See you soon. The Park Service. Federal agency estimated 70% of the roughly 3,750 Yoshino cherry trees lining the basin would open their puffy white blossoms on March 23rd and March 26th, but warned the warmest January in record could change that prediction. It's not the warmest January record. That's another lie. Well, Sports Illustrated, the racist woke publication, has been saved from the dustbin of history. Minute Media, owner of the Players Tribute, has struck a deal to operate Sports Illustrated for at least 10 years. The owner of Sports Illustrated said it's chosen the new company to publish the magazine, a deal that could settle some of the recent friction at the story publication and continue the print edition. Well, this racist black supremacy publication isn't worthy of reading. It's completely eliminated 76% of the population from its covers, from its stories, and it promotes racial division in its endless effort to denigrate and destroy American society. Sports Illustrated should die. Well, spring break has always been a problem. It's getting even worse. Wild photos show spring break mayhem in Miami Beach as cops arrest more than 250 partygoers. Yeah. Wild photos show the chaos of spring break revelry in Miami Beach. Yep. Curfews came in response to last year's mayhem, resulting in 500 arrests, the seizure of 105 guns and 2 fatal shootings last year. Despite a curfew of the weekend, cops still made spring break-related arrests in Miami Beach. Here's one. Is that the same guy? Nope, that's a different guy. Yep. Confirmed they made over 250 arrests since March 1st. Ah, look at that. There's such very well-spoken, respectful young adults there. Scantily clad revelers showed up at the annual celebration, exposing their sexual genitalia for the public to see, and their obesity. People could be seen in bathing suits, seemingly under the influence and surrounded by law enforcement. Twerking outdoors in skimpy clothes. Heavy police presence in the area. And cops could be seen corralling and handling partiers both during the day and night. Neck tattoo and implants, bleach, and body tats. City experienced 500 arrests last year, plus the 2 fatal shootings. Miami PD on patrol in Miami Beach. And it was all too much for this spring breaker. In nearby Fort Lauderdale, 10 isolated spring break-related arrests have been made. So not too many in Fort Lauderdale, but a lot in Miami. A lot in Miami. So what did the data say about school closures? What did I warn people about? What did I warn when they started shutting down our schools in March of 2020? Sending kids home will lead to declining educational outcomes. It is a disaster, particularly for first-year students, those just beginning to learn to read and write. You will not recoup this. And what do we have? The data support my prediction from 4 years ago. The more time students spent remote instruction, the further they fell behind, and experts say extended closures did little to stop the spread of Rona. Oh, is that a censorable moment there, YouTube? The New York Times. I'm reading the New York Times. What I said 4 years ago, what social media censored 4 years ago, and I correctly predicted 4 years ago, now the New York Times tells us after the harm has been done. The ridiculous, hysterical response to a pathogen. 4 years ago this month, schools nationwide began to shut down, igniting one of the most polarizing and partisan debates of the pandemic. Some schools, often in Republican-led states and rural areas, reopened. Others, typically in large cities and states by Democrats, would not fully reopen for another year. A variety of data about children's academic outcomes and about the spread of Rona has accumulated. Since there is broad acknowledgement that many public health and education experts that extended school closures did not significantly stop the spread, while academic harms for children have been large and long-lasting. Wow. So look at this. People who went mostly in person to school are only a third of a year behind. Those who did remote or hybrid learning are over half a year behind. Over half a year behind the outcomes previously. There's a fairly good consensus that in general society, we probably kept kids out of school longer than we should have, said Dr. Sean O'Leary, pediatric infectious disease specialist who helped write school reopening guidance for the American Academy of Pediatrics in June of 2020. Never should have closed. We had the data then. You morons. Utter morons. Ridiculous nonsense. We're not even at 100 likes yet. We're close, 98. Let's hit that like button, folks. They damaged our children and destroyed our society. We will have a generation chock full of psychopaths. When these children who were kept from socializing at a critical stage of development, trapped in their homes, become teens. Well, there you go. There you go. Yeah, so glad I don't have kids to stress about it, says Debbie. Ulrich Fenter, good evening to you. Sloat Steam Compass here. Where's Sloat at? The left lies, so I'm a goat just because I feel like I'm a goat. Exactly, Matthew. Yep. So, Menage a Quad, did I answer your question about the talking point? Okay, let's be clear about something, okay? Let's be clear. So I've just destroyed the lie that is the Democratic left about the Republicans preventing a border bill that's wholly unnecessary. That's lie number one. Lie number two, just think about this for a moment. When did the surge of criminal alien invaders begin? In January and February of 2021, when Joe Biden became president, because he announced to the world that he was going to let anybody in. It rescinded Trump's executive orders controlling border security, but he kept in place Title 42. So, what happened for 3 years? Now we are just 6 months away from an election, and suddenly, after nearly 3 years, over 3 years of chaos, Biden not addressing this issue, tens of millions of people flooding illegally into our country, destroying our cities, impoverishing people, sucking resource away from Americans. Now, 6 months before an election, the Democrats want a bill to give the president authority he already has. Who is the one playing politics here? Republicans or Democrats, Menage a Trois? Republicans or Democrats? Well, of course, the government needs to prosecute people who hire illegals. They do it. We reported on this 3 years ago, meatpacking plants in Nebraska, which were full of illegal aliens that were actually raided by the government. But yes, they should. We should go after the farmers that hire illegal aliens. Anybody that hires illegal aliens. And frankly, we should go after the governments to give identification to criminal alien invaders. Maryland does it. Maryland gives identification to criminal alien invaders. They don't even have to prove the provenance of where they came from. Yep. 6-year-old granddaughter is only just getting used to talking to new people. Exactly, Fleshton. That's exactly the point. That is exactly the point. Not that your granddaughter is going to be a psychopath, but some of those kids will be because of this. Yep. No, the kids are not all right. Yes, the real COVID repercussions are still coming, which I have been saying since February, March of 2020. The wrong-headed, moronic, stupid, hysterical reaction to what took place then. This is not Monday morning quarterbacking, and you are my witnesses. People who watch this show know and have heard me say this from the outset. This is not how you do it. This is insane. The U.S. Africa Command, Eric Threet, set up a program, Navy officer, for pandemic response. We were doing this when Africa Command stood up. We brought health officials from ministries of health, military officials from all African militaries together. We hosted conferences in Rome, in Bangkok, in Africa, in multiple locations, in which subject matter experts from the CDC and the WHO and NIH would come and talk about how to handle and respond to pandemics, contact tracing, isolation, quarantine. And when Ebola hit the Mono River region, what happened? What happened, folks? Somebody flew from Liberia and landed in Nigeria. I think it was in Abuja or maybe it was Lagos, I can't remember which. And they must have been Lagos. They landed there and they suddenly got sick in short order. The Nigerian Ministry of Health using protocols, techniques, policies, rehearsals, plans put in place as a consequence of their participation in the U.S. Africa Command Pandemic Response Program, appropriately responded. They isolated the vulnerable. They quarantined the infected who showed signs of Ebola. They tested people, and then they did thorough contact tracing and quarantined people who came in contact. As a consequence, Nigeria, a country of 208 million people, did not experience a mass outbreak of Ebola, despite the fact that the contagion was delivered in their midst by a traveler on a plane. Which, by the way, is how Marburg became Marburg, because a Belgian doctor from East Africa, Central Africa, flew to Germany for a medical conference and brought Marburg, a filovirus, there in the 1960s. So, there was a method, there was a way to address what happened in 2020 appropriately. However, governments seized on it, either out of their hysteria or their fear, to take power, which they still possess. We adults know how to compartmentalize. The kids and clueless only know what social media showed them, no social skills. Japan will try to take over the world again. Big problem for us. Japan? Are you serious? Japan has been stagnant for 35 years. For 35 years, Japan's economy has been in the tank. It's only now showing signs of life. Its population is declining. Its population is the grayest on the planet. How is Japan going to take over the world? With 70-year-old soldiers carrying rifles? Come on, Jonathan. What you talking about, man? Japan's military is rebuilding as a consequence of China. Their military doesn't have the ability to project. The Japanese do have a base in Djibouti, but they're hardly in a position to threaten the world like they were in the 1930s. And Japan's been rebuilding its military with the consent of Washington and the encouragement of Washington in the past decade. Throwing your mate in the ocean. What's that about? What's that all about? 103 likes, 78 people currently here. Thank you all for tuning in on Monday, March 18th, 2024. Jonathan, that is never going to happen. Never. Never going to happen. China and Japan will never be allies. Even allies of convenience. Not going to happen. That ignores the history of China and Japan. That ignores the current situation of China and Japan. It ignores the reality that the Chinese also conduct industrial espionage and copyright and trademark infringement against Japanese companies as much as they do it against American companies. It ignores the fact that the Chinese government has been attacking Japanese fishing trawlers, that they've been claiming territorial sovereignty over the land that belongs to Japan, islands off the west coast of Japan. No, that's not going to happen, brother. Not going to happen. Actually, countries like Vietnam are allying against China. Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, Indonesia, Australia, South Korea, Japan, all forming blocs against China. About Marburg. Nice one, mate. Chris must have forgotten already. Garrett, I assume you're talking about his ashes. I haven't forgotten anything, John Jarvis. What are you implying there? Are you talking about your friend passing away, you're tossing his ashes in the ocean? What you're saying makes no sense. They're not complete sentences, so it's hard for me to decipher what you're getting at. Is that what you're talking about? I didn't forget anything. I don't know what he's talking about. Anyway, it's difficult to follow sometimes conversation for some folks in the chat. Matthew Dixon's moving to Maryland. Oh, so you can get a fake ID. Yeah. Well, not a fake ID. It's a genuine ID from a government. Yep. No, it's government should not allow people to hire illegal aliens. Absolutely not. The government shouldn't hire illegal aliens. Hey, South Africa's government hires illegal aliens. Look at the Zimbabwean Northwest government. There's the chief operating or chief financial officer for Northwest Province. And he's a Zimbabwean who has an illegal permit to stay in South Africa. That's a rich one there. Wow. Gate McKenzie is complaining and Herman Mashaba complaining about illegal aliens in South Africa, and the ANC government's hiring them in government positions. Oh, my goodness. Hey, folks, we've got some memorable dates coming up for U.S. military and veterans. March 24th is the start of the Kosovo campaign back in 1999. Can you believe that? It's already 25 years ago, quarter century ago, that the Kosovo campaign started. And of course, I have participated in that campaign. Yep. And then March 31st or March 29th is Vietnam Veterans Day. Conflict for America started in 1961 or thereabouts. And March 31st is the end of Operation Restore Hope, the Somalia mission, which began in 1992 and ended in 1995. Jonathan says, thanks for saving us from Japanese. Well, we did in the 1940s. We did save from Japanese, but now they're our friends. Manashqua says, what's your take on Hogan? Also, how was your debate? Well, my take on Hogan is he's a rhino, Republican name only. He's not a conservative, and he is a pale shadow compared to his predecessor at governor, who was Republican Bob Ehrlich, who was the best governor Maryland has had probably since William Donald Schaefer. Yeah, without doubt. Bob Ehrlich was the best governor since William Donald Schaefer in the state of Maryland. As far as the debate, went pretty well. I got some volunteers as a consequence of it. Got some signage posted up yesterday, knocked on some more doors, got some more volunteers yesterday. But the debate was not a debate. It was a question and answer session. They called it a debate, but it was really just a question and answer session. It was good. Interesting to hear what other people had to say. So, how many foreigners in our military with high ranks? I have no idea, Kurtz. No idea. You can't be a foreigner in America and be an officer, so that's 0 in our ranks. Yep. Yeah, I could use more, though, Hender. I could use a lot more volunteers, particularly as we get closer to the election. So, anyway. Yeah, it's not that far away now. Soon we'll be 30 days out, and I'll be able to place yard signs on public property. You're only allowed to do that 30 days from the election. Yeah, a lot of people are given rank, Kurtz. I earned mine the hard way, very hard way. So, Kathy Hochul wants New York State government to hire illegals. Really, I didn't see that. Wow. You have more interest. Ask Mui. What's Mui? Me? Okay. Always worth listening. Your breadth of knowledge still astounds me. Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Sometimes I wonder if I'm running out of hard drive space, as I've struggled to find a word now and then. I feel like Joe Biden. Maybe I need Prevagen. Yeah, Prevagen. Just too much stuff. Think about it, folks. Think about this. This is such an amazing thing. Life itself is incomprehensible. The fact that life is. Think about your body. You're made up of deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, and you have chromosomes. And these things send instructions to produce your fingers and your nails, and for your vision, and for your ability to ingest processed food, to breathe, to regulate your heart, your blood system, your pancreatic system, all the nerves, all of these incredibly complicated things that make us human beings. But beyond that, unlike others in the natural world, we have the ability to reason. Now, many people don't reason. Just look at social media. But think about this. I mean, we can come to grasp and understand a hard drive or a solid state thumb drive. I mean, this makes sense. We can figure this out. It's a piece of something physical. It's got ability for data to be etched onto it digitally, ones and zeros, and restored and called and recalled by placing different devices. I mean, get that. But how do the synapses in our brain fire and neurons and send messages? How do we store data? I mean, who remembers things vividly before the age of 5? Usually just glimpses. And how do we compartmentalize? How does our brain divide things up? And how do people become so talented artistically with music and art and singing? And some of us can't sing for saving our lives, but others can grasp facts and can analyze and can deduce and correctly surmise like that. But many people can't. It's just amazing. Think about it, folks. It's absolutely amazing. The human experience is incredible. And yet we have selfish, ghoulish people the world over who seek to profit from the misery of others, who seek to harm others based on their appearance, based on their skin pigmentation, their belief in a deity. or their non-belief in a deity, or their value system. It's crazy. And we do have alien DNA. It's called mitochondrial. And without mitochondrial DNA, which came from bacteria, we would not even be able to survive. Our mitochondria allow us to harness energy, which allows us to make our bodies function. Just think about it. Brandon Herrera. I don't even know who that is. If he wins the primary, then yeah, just bring that question up again after he wins the primary, Matthew. Yep. It's to me, it's something else. I mean, the brain is just a piece of mush up here. It's spongy. It sits inside this case that encases it. In this case, a very lovely case. It's crazy, folks. It's crazy, isn't it? Think about it. Really amazing. Life. I mean, think about this. Two people, one with an X and a Y chromosome, one with an X and an X chromosome, get together. There's an attraction, some kind of chemistry. Or maybe it's just alcohol. And they do the deed. These little fellas swim up there, and they swim up there, and they go, ooh, look, it's the egg. Woo! And she rebuffs the first one, and the next one, and the next one. But the little buggers are determined, and one of them suddenly slides in, poof, and fireworks go off. And then the cells start dividing, and dividing, and dividing, and dividing. And a child begins to form as a consequence of the sperm and egg making contact. And then, unlike most species, humans are long-term gestation, like elephants, long-term gestation, 9 months. That long to develop inside the womb, to develop the ability to survive outside the womb. But upon birth, unlike a horse, unlike a wildebeest, a human infant is incapable of surviving on its own. It requires nurturing, which requires interaction and support amongst parents to protect, to keep warm, to clothe, to feed, to clean, to defend. But a wildebeest, out and on its legs in moments and runs with the herd. A horse, a foal, out and on its legs in moments, runs with the crowd. But not humans. Humans must be taken care of, fed, taught, raised to become adults. And what do? They go twerk half naked on the beach in Miami Beach and demand reparations. John said Chris is doing his creepy Biden whispering. That's true, John. I was, wasn't I? Yeah, if you live in New York, you can kill it after birth. Not sure Matthew came in existence like that. Basement go. What's going on there? Got a little spot. Isn't quite right. Yeah, maybe that's what happened with Matthew. I don't know. I don't know. Hey, Lorraine, how's it going? S-Bach. Good to see S-Bach here. Lorraine, you guys are tuning in late. Thanks for being here. Boy, you guys are killing me though. But I mean, think about it, folks. I mean, life is so damn precious. And I know those of you who've suffered tragedy or setbacks in your life, like the Right Reverend Rawhide, who had a stroke and then was watching my show this same day in hospital. Erica, stroke, overcame it. Had another one, overcame it. Those who suffer physical ailments and disabilities and challenges know how precious life is. Those of us had near-death experiences, nearly carjacked, nearly shot, or shot at, or have been shot and survived, tend to appreciate life. We all should appreciate life. I'm not saying people that haven't gone through tragedy don't appreciate it, but life is so precious. It's so valuable. There's nothing more valuable than your life. There really isn't. There isn't. Your liberties and your freedoms come next, but just living is the first thing. And living a good life. That's what matters. Matthew, people watch the show are getting strokes. Not while watching the show, Matthew. Not while watching the show. People who died from the Rona used to watch the show. Funny guy says, Matthew, his trolling is good on today. It's on spot on today. Anyway, Matthew, thank you for sharing that. That was kind of funny. Got my attention. But today I'm off to start my digital marketing campaign, approve for the postcard campaign. Hopefully, probably not today, but probably tomorrow, pick up next batch of yard signs and then do some door-to-door knocking later today. So got lots to do. Also got a medical appointment this afternoon. Yes, Erica says, and that's the point I was making, stroke taught me how fragile life is. Yep. Yep, that's exactly right. Is Matt Canale here? Wow. Where did Matt pop in there? I didn't see that. Where's Matt Canale at? I don't see Matt in here. Huh. He must be here. Otherwise, you couldn't do the @ symbol. He wouldn't show up. Well, Matt, I missed you. I'm sorry I missed you there. 108 likes. Hey, that's cool. And we got a little bit of super chat money, which got started earlier. 2. Usina started with 10 pounds, followed by Henda with 5 pounds. And I think CB gave 35 Rand and Erica gave 70 Rand, and then it all stopped. It all stopped. Anyway, so by the way, just to let you know how things are going here. My live streams, now this hasn't happened in a long time. These live streams here that I'm doing, the daily ones, the last 3 have all gone over 900 views. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you all so much for that. I appreciate that. Not quite like the old days, but much better than we were, say, a year ago. All 3 have gone over 900 views. And fortunately, none of them have been restricted for advertising by YouTube, which happens occasionally. The one prior to that was restricted. But 900 views. Thank you for that, folks. I'm really grateful for that. That people are watching the content. As far as the other videos, the one I'm disappointed in is the South Africa 2024 election coalition scenario. I thought that would do very well, but that one only has 2,300 views, and it's been up for 5 days, so it's not going to go anywhere. The ANC candidate list for Parliament, Where Are the Whiteys? That went 17,500 views. It's best performing prepared video in a while. And then the EFF inciting violence again was 9,500, and one before that, ICJ rejects South Africa's plea to intervene in Gaza, 15,000. And then City Press attacks on Steve Hofmeyr. Forgot about that one on February 12th. That's at 13,500. And then South Africa's ANC embroiled in another financial scandal, 20,000. So, yeah, 2, 3, 4, about 5 videos have gone over 10,000 in the past month. That's cool. So that's good stuff. Anyway. Oh, someone's playing games here. I think they're just subscribing so they can chat, but I keep going from 14,814 back to 14,811 and back to 14. Now we're back to 11, so you gotta love it. You gotta love it. It's just crazy. 592 people tuned in during this stream. Thank you so much for that. And what else we got on here? You shall win, says Garrett. Well, I hope so. I caught up the rugby. Thanks for your streams. Otherwise, we'll be clueless. Yeah, no, Debbie. So we've got URC action coming up this weekend. Going to be busy for that. So that's coming up this weekend. And we've still got the Challenge and Champions Cup coming up as well. Then later on, we'll get to the Curry Cup later in the season, and then the test match. Right now, based on my election campaign, I can't make any promises on where I'm going to be or where I'm not going to be. I would love to be at Twickenham in London. There is an incredible doubleheader with South Africa, Wales, and then the Barbarians are playing Fiji. That is going to be an incredible rugby day. That is going to be awesome. Twickenham is a great place to watch this stuff. It's a pain to get to and from the stadium, but it's an incredible place for watching rugby. And those 2 games will be something else. Something else. UK is going to be such an amazing electric. It is, Debbie. It is. It's going to be incredible for that. And then the South Africa games against Ireland are going to be awesome too. And I'd love to go to those, but the dates are just not ideal. I mean, if I cover the elections, UK, South Africa, it's going to be hard to do all this stuff. First off, I mean, money after my campaign. I'm going to be broke. Oh my goodness. Springboks. Let's look up the dates on this test schedule. There it is. All right. So, Springboks home test schedule. This isn't the road test schedule. I need the road test. Why do they always give me I need the road test schedule. So the home test schedule is not till July 6th, and that's in Loftus, and that one's already sold out against Ireland. Then there's against Ireland at Durban. I think that one's sold out too. And then that's the 13th to 20th of July versus Portugal in Bloemfontein. I'd love to go to that game. That'd be pretty cool. Portugal was fun. I didn't get to watch them in the World Cup live, that is. And then it's New Zealand, Argentina. But where are the road games? That's what I'm wondering. So that's just half the schedule. Yeah. Looking for, why is it just home fixtures? There, 11 tests. That's what I want. So here are the just 11 tests this year. Wow, that's not hard testing them hard at all. So we got June 22nd. That's the one in Twickenham. That's one that's going to be almost impossible for me to get to. Plus, it's probably sold out already. So then in August, they're in Australia. In August, they play at Suncorp in Brisbane. And August 17th, they play at Perth. That'd be awesome to go to, too. Stop doing this. So South Africa plays, the Springboks play Australia in Perth on August 17th. And then they're in New Zealand on the 31st. That would be, oh no, that's back in Joburg. Yep. So, And then they play England at Twickenham in November. That's after the election. So even when I win the primary, I continue till November. Maybe my reward for winning the election will be to go to Twickenham in November and watch South Africa and England play. That would be pretty cool. Yeah. Is je Afrikaans? Klik ja voor news in jouw taal. Well, I have news in my taal. It's English. My goodness. Portugal tickets are going on sale in 4 days. Oh, okay, CB. That's cool. That's cool. I haven't been to Nelspruit in a long time. Good excuse to go down and golf in Mbombani after that, if you're near Nelspruit. It's not that far away. Yep. Stripper chats for like Ronaldo. I'm not doing stripper chats. Florida beaches are shut and guarded at 6 p.m. That's a good idea. Love the Afrikaans, Chris. Well done. Thank you, Lorraine. Buy a donkey. Yep. And if you can't afford a donkey, you can always get a goat. Thanks, Chris Marie. Oh, by the way, Chris Marie, I think, shared with me that Ruan Pinar has announced his retirement. What a tough break there, folks. I missed Hendo's comment. Become a political stripper soon in Miami. Yeah, and to finance my trip. Oh, yeah, there you go. That's what you were saying. You'll be a political stripper to finance my trips. So Google, do a Ruan Pinar. Let's run through his career. Ruan Pinar, South African rugby union player, 40 years of age. Made his debut at the Springboks in 2006 at the Tri-Nations against New Zealand. Was a member of the successful 2007 World Cup squad. As he did not play club rugby in South Africa since 2010, it seemed unlikely he would be called again to play for their national team. Saru had a bogus policy of selecting form-based players in exceptional circumstances. But in 2011, it was reported he was named to the 49-man World Cup training squad. Yep. He played high school rugby in Bloemfontein, where he went to grade college. And he became Free State Craven Week in 2002. Played for the Sharks in Currie Cup, the Sharks in Super Rugby before joining Ulster. Yep. So let's look at his career. 2004 to 2010, the Sharks in the Currie Cup, 32 appearances, 261 points. 2005, 2010, he played for the Sharks, 67 appearances, 240 points. 2010 and 2017, his longest stint, Ulster, 141 appearances, 877 points. 2017 to 2019 in France, in Montpellier, he made 28 appearances for 161 points. And in 2019, he came back to play for the Free State Cheetahs, 27 appearances, 241 points. And then just the Cheetahs from 2020 on, 15 appearances, 91 points. And he was on loan to the Sharks for 5 games in 2021, 2022, 10 points. Yep. 88 appearances for South Africa as a Springbok. A gold medal in 2007, and he got a bronze in 2015 in the World Cup. Yep. So let's see. How many appearances is that in club rugby? Do that very quickly, because we know that Brock Harris has got over 400. So 32 plus 67 plus 141 plus 28 and 27 and 15 and 5. 315 appearances in club rugby and 88 as a test. Wow. Yeah, we are crawling back up to 15,000. What did Paulie say? Ruan Pinar, form is temporary, class is permanent. He could still play for the Balks if needed. Yeah, great. I agree 100%. And I said he should have been on the World Cup squad. Absolutely said that. Ruan Pinar should have been on there. Yep, because he can play scrum half and he can also play fly half. And what a sad day to see him leave. What a stud. And, he really grew into his size as he became older. Ruan Pinar, what an incredible rugby legend, in my view, for the Springboks and for South Africa. And anybody disagrees is simply wrong. What is that? Dude is having a breakdown. What? All right. That's going to be it, folks. We're going to wrap it up here. Thanks a lot. And I do appreciate it. What's in Bloemfontein? Should have tried to calculate without calculator. I'd still be doing it, scientist. Agree was also hoping he would go. He would have offered more than, yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. It would have been far better than Jaden Hendrickson, no doubt. No doubt. But not better than Grant Williams. Grant Williams was incredible in the World Cup, and he doesn't get credit for that. He barely got any time. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow unless something breaks. God bless. It's always a pleasure. Be sure to hit the like button. Thank you for your patronage. Share the link and let people know about the program. We were over 100 viewers today for a while there. We peaked at 112. Yep, and for approximately 25 minutes, we had over 100 in the view. That's more like it, folks. Take care. God bless, and have a lovely evening. You're appreciated.